It's like, imagine a tree, the tree of faith. You have a trunk, that's your faith. That trunk is built on roots. Now you can dig the earth and take each root and snap it with your fingers. Yes, these are the evidence. When you take it alone, individually, the evidence might be weak. It's easy to break it up and argue against it. But when you take all the evidence together, when you take the whole root system, it becomes quite clear. The trunk emerges. Similarly, when I see all this evidence that can support Islam, and I take all of them together, then faith, then conviction emerges. And then they'll give fruits, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So in chapter 3, section 6, which is the summary of the chapter, and I think it's quite important to recapitulate, to summarize, just to make sure that we haven't lost sight of the main argument. So in this chapter, I reviewed the different intellectual steps necessary, required to accept a scientific theory. And I focused on 3 main ingredients: the origin, the relevance, and usefulness, utility. Then I said that if a theory fulfills these 3 criteria, it will be accepted in science. Then I applied the same criteria to Islam in order to show that being religious is rational as being a scientist. So indeed, if a religion fulfills the same conditions, origin, relevance, utility, as the ones that are necessary to accept a scientific theory, then there's no real objection, scientifically speaking, to refrain from accepting this religion as a valid worldview. If you accept one because of these criteria, then you cannot reject the other because they fulfill the same criteria. So in this aim, I appreciate, for instance, that I can still evaluate the historical origin of Islam through the Quran, through its preservation, through the Hadith, and the way they were preserved and conveyed through the centuries. So this historicity helps me build trust in the text themselves, in the sacred text, the Quran and the Hadith. And it is these texts that I then examine to evaluate the message in terms of its relevance. Like, does it make sense? Okay, that's the text that was conveyed to me. I trust that the process of conveying is sound. Now, what is the text telling me? Does it make sense? Contrary to public opinion, I see complementarity between religion and current scientific worldviews. I don't necessarily see contradictions. It has its own logic, it has its own benefits, but that makes it a coherent whole, a rational package. So yes, you can ask me, what about miracles? Funnily enough, I have a book already in French published about miracles in the Quran, where I discuss what are miracles, how they should be understood, and what's the purpose of miracles. So inshallah, it will come up in English, probably next year. If you want a snapshot of it, you can always refer to an article I published some time ago called Cosmographical Readings of the Quran, in which I showcased what I think of miracles. The fact that I'm able to evaluate Islam with scientific rigor might not be a mere coincidence. It might most probably reflect the fact that scientific method was developed under Islamic influence by religious thinkers like Ibn al-Haytham, al-Biruni, Ibn Sina, and so on. I must emphasize that I'm not trying here to scientifically prove the truth of Islam, but simply to demonstrate its rationality, that it makes sense. As a matter of fact, I have still not found in the sciences a direct, self-sufficient or absolute proof for the existence of God. But I found evidence, many evidence. By evidence, I refer to phenomena or ideas which, when taken individually, can support multiple theories at once. By absolute proof, I refer to an argument that is strong enough to support only one theory and nothing else. With regard to Islam, I do not know of any such proof from within the sciences. However, the evidence are plenty. And when you combine each of them all together, whether it's the ordering of the universe, the chemistry of life, the preservation of the sacred text, the relevance, scientific relevance, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, the whole picture becomes clear. It's like, imagine a tree, the tree of faith. You have a trunk, that's your faith. That trunk is built on roots. The roots are plenty, and they branch out in the earth. Now you can dig the earth and take each root and snap it with your fingers. Yes, these are the evidence. When you take it alone, individually, the evidence might be weak. It's easy to break it up and argue against it. But when you take all the evidence together, when you take the whole root system, it becomes quite clear. The trunk emerges. Similarly, when I see all this evidence that can support Islam, and I take all of them together, then faith, then conviction emerges. And then they'll give fruits, inshallah. So supported by scientific reasoning, in today's scientific age, the act of faith is no longer a weakness of the mind, but the fruit of an educated choice. Here, I must specify by choice, I mean that yes, ultimately Allah decides, Allah has control over my heart and my mind. But it still gives me the impression of choosing a path. Remember the discussion we had on conditional free will. He still facilitates a path and makes me believe that yes, I have to do some choices in order to follow one path more than the other. That's what I mean by choice. So again, belief is not a weakness of the mind, but it can be a choice. It can be an educated choice. It can be a scientifically informed, educated choice. وجزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله